It is the fifth model introduced in the 2025 Godzilla collaboration with Metarots S, sporting the likeness of the iconic kaiju from the terrors of the cosmos themselves. It is GZL04, Space Godziragna, with an almost completely new kit of Hyper Brake, Suction Brake, Blowback Brake, biped legs, and the leg ability of Impregnable, which is a brand new leg ability that adds the barrier effect to self when charging Metaforce. Now, as a fifth model introduced in the Godzilla collaboration, it's been made abundantly clear that this collaboration overall hasn't necessarily been introducing a lot of characters that were overly powerful or add a lot of versatility, but added a lot of things that made them very, very good in certain conditions or in certain kinds of situations. But in those said situations, make them extremely powerful and very good to have in any team across the board. Hyper Brake on the head part is a gravity attribute skill, which means it also has a hand in Heavy Punish, which means that if the enemy has more than 2 heavy parts or even 3, they're most certainly going to be feeling the pain across the board. And with it being a hyper variant means it also has an extra added bonus of some higher power, and of course keeping the passive piercing that Brake always had. And with a very high success at 1493, almost 1500, and a base power at almost 1800, it's gonna hit pretty hard whether the opponent has the weight or not. However, Hyper Brake also has another really nice bonus to it, and it's the fact that Hyper Brake also has Defense Ignore packed into it. This means that regardless of however the opponent tries to guard against the attack to reduce damage, it's going to be outright ignored and bypassed to deal the highest amount of damage possible, at the cost that with Hyper Brake you cannot dodge or defend in cooldown. So just a little bit of caution is going to be advised if you do plan to use Hyper Brake. But if you're going to, it's going to be extremely painful to anyone that is bringing on the weight against anyone facing off against this cosmic horror. Right Arm of Suction Brake is the first of the 2 new skills that is being introduced with Space Godziragna, but simply explained, it's simply just two effects crunched into one attack. The first of which is, of course, Suction, which is a shooting attack that will pull the enemy closer to the command line by either stalling their cooldowns or, if mistimed, accidentally accelerating their heat phases. However, with it being Brake, it also means it has a gravity attribute tied to it, which means that, much like with Hyper Brake, this does mean that not only does Space Godziragna now have a hand in crowd control, but also further emphasizing his emphasis on Heavy Punish. So again, anyone trying to pack 2 or more heavy parts is definitely going to be feeling the pain. 1 or none, probably not as much. But it is also worth noting that Gravity also gets a success bonus tied to CG, much in the same instance that Laser gets a damage bonus relative. So this means that the higher your CG goes, the more likely the hit is not only likely to land, which means a lot easier to be pulled back and forth, but also that it's going to crit on top of that. Blowback Brake on the left arm is the other new skill that's being introduced, which again, much like Suction Brake, is just two skill effects crunched into one. Explained, much like with Suction Brake pulling the enemy closer to the command line, Blowback Brake instead will be pushing the enemy away from the user. So this will be really good for stalling heat phases where the enemy is running toward you, or, if mistimed, may accidentally accelerate their cooling phase so they can instantly start their next turn. And with it being a gravity attribute skill, once again, 2 or more heavy parts, definitely going to be feeling it. 1 or none, maybe not as much. Biped legs means that Space Godziragna is going to be very solid across most terrains pretty well, and for the most part, it has been holding some pretty solid bulk across all the models that we've seen over the course of this collaboration. And this model is most certainly no exception. With a base mobility of 909, it's going to be off to a very good start in the speed department, so he's not going to have to rely too heavily on any Metarotters or terrain bonuses to really make sure he gets to the line quickly. And a heavy support of 3 is kind of expected as what we've seen from the collaboration so far, so it's still going to be a very solid leg all the same. An evade of 1058 isn't too shabby, as it means he can dodge or graze fairly well as long as whenever he chooses to feel like it. A melee resist of 1091, almost 1100 is okay. He's going to hold his own up close fairly decently, but he's going to definitely want to try to keep enemies away from him. and a shoot resist of 1410 is right in that nice little sweet spot that you want to be in, as far as keeping your damage low with damage reduction is concerned. As far as armor, Space Godziragna is also a very healthy boy when it comes to that department, with a head armor of almost 4400, arms at over 4,000 each, and legs at almost 4,200. This means that he's going to be pretty bulky all around, and unless you really choose to close the distance and get in his personal space, it's going to be pretty easy for him to be able to tank blows pretty well. However, with him being able to pull enemies or push them both almost at will, that's going to be kind of a chore in and of itself. The leg ability of Impregnable is really, really nice, though, as a brand new ability being introduced into the game with the barrier effect. And to explain the barrier effect briefly, kind of pulling back to where Boson was with the successor of the Archdevil type, with his aggro draw type of defense orientation. Impregnable, when charging Metaforce and gaining the barrier effect, means that you'll be getting a specialized boost that, upon attacked, will prevent a killing blow to being tanked at 1 HP instead of breaking it. But whether the attack breaks something or not, it will be diffused upon being attacked. So this is going to be a really nice, I guess I can call it health insurance for lack of a better term, as if you know for a fact you're probably going to get whacked really, really hard with something on the opponent's next hit, this might be a really good way to try to keep that damage low, or at least try to keep things from breaking. Because more often than not, it's a lot better to have something at 1 HP than it is to not have it at all. And given that Space Godziragna is triple heavy, if those legs go out, he's effectively hosed. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I honestly have to rate Space Godziragna, I'd honestly say kind of a middle-of-the-road, kind of upper middle, kind of 6.5 out of 10. Given that his kit is actually pretty nasty, with the ability to both pull and push enemies at will, and an extremely heavy emphasis on heavy punish, which is really, really good, and a very solid leg ability, unfortunately, gravity is kind of really the only thing here, and being able to and having to switch between suction break and blowback break is going to require a little bit of a juggling act, as if you mistime one, either because you don't quite catch where the enemy is, or if they try to get faster than you, it could throw the entire system out of whack, and Space Godziragna, or any of his allies, may possibly suffer for it. Additionally, because he is triple gravity, anyone that is using a gravity-type guard will effectively render him completely harmless in any situation whatsoever. As mixed parts, though, I do have to rate him just a little bit higher at a 7 out of 10, given that Hyper Break, Suction Break, and Blowback Break are all actually very solid skills unto their own right, and Biped Legs with this new leg ability of Impregnable is actually going to be pretty nice to see. I do fully anticipate we might see it in PvP every now and then as a way to serve as life insurance, like I said, because if you can guarantee and confirm that if you can keep something without it breaking, people are most likely going to use it.